And I think that this would be a good time to, and this very much I think ties into what we just talked about with Jimmy Dore, and this I think provides another layer into this whole RussiaGate narrative, and that is perhaps even the role of a lot of Russian state media, so to speak, such as Russia Today, and a lot of perhaps very questionable, likely less than honest operatives acting within these circles, within these various state-run media networks, such as not just RT in Russia, but also even perhaps something like Telesur in Venezuela. And that is going to lead us into a clip of from Max Blumenthal's program, Moderate Rebels, where he's introducing his guest, Abby Martin, my favorite person in the world, who, of course, at one point was a very outspoken advocate for 9/11 truth and has really regressed in a lot of ways. And I think this opening clip of Max Blumenthal, who's a leading poo-pooer of the Russiagate narrative, very much in the vein of a Jimmy Dore, and somebody who has taken shots at people who are truthers in his eyes, has been very, very critical of 9/11 truthers. This clip of him describing Alex Jones, I think, really is a very interesting one that I think is pretty enlightening in some ways.
Okay, here we go.
Moderate
Rebels.
All right, welcome to Moderate Rebels. It's August 13th, 2018. I'm Max Blumenthal. Ben Norton is on hiatus, but he'll be back next week. Much needed rest from the cascading series of organically developed crises we're facing here, which we deflect onto Russia and external forces. We're here with Abby Martin, who is a friend of the show and has been really at the center of what we want to discuss today, which is a really concerted campaign to suppress dissident voices in online media. And it appears that this campaign is ramping up with a lot of government pressure on a very passive, willing partner in Silicon Valley. Abby, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, Max.
Good to have you here at this time, at this moment in history. One of our favorite people, Alex Jones, was just removed from several, pretty much all online platforms. It's actually not one of our favorite people. He's someone that you've been hammering for years, along with your brother, Robbie Martin, who does a really good job of exposing how Alex Jones took a lot of kind of skepticism around 9/11, like legitimate skepticism, where people were asking questions about the anthrax attacks, about the Saudi role, about blowback, and kind of moving people towards the right. And actually,
there you go.
Yeah, so if you're not talking about hijackers or anthrax or Saudi Arabia, then you're moving people to the right. I guess that's what all that science. Oh, that's right wing quack nonsense.
Yeah, things like gravity or the second law of thermodynamics. Those are right wing concepts. Right. And this is troubling because, I'll send some links of Bloom. We could do a whole show on this topic, to be honest. Of course, we don't have time to, but, I'll send some links. I'll send the link to the article I wrote that got me banned from the 9/11 blogger website a couple of years ago. Max Blumenthal finds Abby Martin not guilty of 9/11 truth, and just Blumenthal's history of not only with 9/11, but with a lot of issues, particularly related to Palestine and Palestine Solidarity Movement, BDS movement, playing the role of like this policeman of discourse and trying to steer people away from getting too close to a lot of hard truths, I think, about the power of Zionism and Jewish power in general, not just in Israel, but here in the United States and globally in general. And so what I saw from this is another layer, because these are two of the leading poo-pooing of the whole Russia collusion narrative. Is they're right there in the vein of Jimmy Dore as being among the most outspoken that are opposed to this. But in talking about the censorship of the Empire Files, Abby's program on Telesur, which for the most part is a very, very well done documentary TV series. He's done a lot of great work on that show, notwithstanding some of my personal
issues with some of the backtracking I think she's done on important issues. In discussing this and related to sanctions and economic and inability of money to come in from Venezuela, which has led to the inability to continue to make new episodes of this program, you brought up an important point when you were talking on False Flag Weekly News with Kevin Barrett about this, and that is that the influence of the state media in terms of Abby Martin and these people like Max Blumenthal that have really come around her in recent years, first at Russia Today and then at Telesur. And I pointed out to you when we were talking that it was RT that put Abby kind of on the map to a bigger community than just like the 9/11 circles that she was running in, although Abby won't admit it now. Her and Alex Jones were actually very much they did work together at one point on a lot of things. And but it was RT that put her Occupy Oakland work on the map. And then, she was brought on first as I think a contributor, and she got her own program on RT. And then you start to see these Max Blumenthals. And also, in addition to, I think, having a negative effect on her ability to really discuss a lot of deep truth, I think it also moved her into this dialectic of this Marxist Bolshevik worldview, which I think is just the other side of the dialectic to this this Zionist nationalist
capitalist
right wing. Yeah, exactly. And I think in the process of that this has been a 2 or 3-fold operation, and you describe it as the carrot and the stick, moving someone like her away from a lot of these more controversial, I think, harder or real deep truths, such as the events such as September 11th and the actual extent of the operation, and also moving into this more of for all Abby's flaws when she was in this Alex Jones InfoWars We Are Change spear, I think she had more of an understanding of just the falseness of this of this system in general and a lot of the false systems that are out there, but now has moved so hardcore into this leftist direction. And we've described this as possibly being part of perhaps a Soviet, to an extent, splinter operation, which is just designed to control a lot of the more harder elements as far as the right wing and left wing movements in this country are concerned. But I just see this as being a 3-fold operation. You can see someone like Max Blumenthal, his history of ridiculing 9/11 truthers, being at the forefront of an operation to move people like Abby Martin away. And I would also compare and contrast her with Caitlin Johnstone, who very much is also another leading figure in this whole poo-pooing of Russiagate. And much like how, Max Blumenthal is very overtly, and other people, maybe answer coalition types that are really into the Bolshevik side of the dialectic, have steered Abby, have really come around her. Now you've also had with Caitlin Johnstone, less overtly, more maybe covertly, it's people like Mike Cernovich and Jack Posobiec, who are very much pushing the same narrative on Russiagate from a right-wing perspective, have really become insulated themselves into Caitlin Johnstone's inner circle, so to speak. So I pointed that out as well. But I think this is important as a means of showing just how it's the same people that come around on Russiagate and the harder truths about September 11th, and just where all of these people fall short is that you get even someone like an Abby Martin, who was outspoken at one point about I think a lot of the deeper aspects of September 11th, is now just completely gone backwards on that, and is also to the point to where she can't see, or perhaps intentionally or unintentionally, is not able to see a bigger picture at play with something like Russiagate and the actual ramifications of it.
Yes, and I do think it's key to look at that idea of the state sponsorship. You can have the problem of corporate sponsorship, but you can also have the problem of state sponsorship potentially. And I would repeat what I said on False Flag Weekly News, is that I do think that Abby Martin does some of the most important left journalism out there, especially in relationship to going on the ground and getting stories out of places like Palestine, Venezuela, for example, where very few other people are actually getting audio, visual
I would even
documentation.
Add Houston, Texas, after the hurricanes last year, and getting some of the stories of the people on the ground there that are just being stereotyped as looters and criminals. So that's all great work, and I commend most of the work she does to this day. So
yeah, and at the same time, as she then gets taken into state media like RT, for example, and now we know some of the deeper background behind RT and the issues of 9/11 being basically the red line on RT, the Israeli satellites and all of that. And then I think there's also this aspect of being dependent in a certain way, whether it's being dependent on Telesur or being dependent on certain social, professional networks in terms of what it means to be, quote, legitimate in Max Blumenthal's, creating the red line about what's legitimate questioning about September 11th. And you're only also allowed to question. You're not actually allowed to do a productive analysis that makes assertions based on open source facts and things like physical observations. No, you're only allowed to ask questions about things like Saudi hijackers, blowback, anthrax in some nebulous way. But meanwhile, there's actually, let's actually sort of go down that route. It's interesting he didn't include Israel, even in relationship to things like blowback or even in relationship to things like hijackers.